Well, good morning. It's Adam Mason, your host of the Bearded Talk podcast. Thanks so much for listening, guys. This is going to be a banger. This is really fun. Joey Wright Photo is on, and he is a swimsuit fashion photographer out of Miami, Florida. And I just love his story. We talk about kind of the journey that he took to get to where he is now. Honestly, I'm not in the swimwear fashion world, but I would say that Joey is my favorite of that genre. He's just really fun, really friendly, and he does really silly stuff on Instagram. And then he's just really good at his job. So wanted to dive into Joey's story. He was so gracious and took a lot of time to kind of explain to us what's going down in his world. And without any further ado, here's Joey Wright. Joey, how's it going, man?
Adam, thanks for having me on here. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man, it's a good time. I read all your stuff on Instagram. I've seen for a long time, and I even got your tutorial via F-stoppers, I think a year or two ago. And just because you're an industry that like I know nothing about, and you're really good at it, and it's like that's kind of the vibe of people we bring on. And so I always like just reaching out and being like, hey, can Joey come on and talk about like swimsuit and fashion? And you just have a really cool perspective, man. So it's gonna be really fun.
Well, cool. Yeah, I appreciate anytime anybody's willing to listen to the nonsense that's going to come out of my mouth. That's it's flattering. So yeah, let's dive into it.
I love it, man. So tell me a little bit about your background. I know you're from Miami and you primarily shoot, and might not even be using the right terms, like swimwear and fashion. But other than that, like, how'd you get into that? Did you shoot anything else before? Or did you kind of like, I know you live in Miami and you were just like, hey, maybe I want to shoot my friends or shoot all the girls that are down in South Beach. Like, how did that work? And, how long is that trip taken for you?
Yeah, it definitely wasn't an overnight process. And just for the record, I'll say this. So I grew up in Fort Lauderdale, which is just north of Miami. So I'm kind of like a fake Miami guy because really the people in Miami are like, oh, Fort Lauderdale, that's not Miami. That's kind of like saying, what's a good example of that?
Like they're from New York, but they're actually from North Jersey. Yeah,
they're exactly like I live in LA, but really you live like, outside of LA, but you're basically based. So now with that said, it's like actually for the last year and a half, I was renting a room down in South Beach. So I was kind of back and forth. Like I have my place in Fort Lauderdale, and I'd just go down there and have this crash pad for just it's weird because I tell people, oh yeah, I'll drive down to Miami. They're like, oh, how far is that? I'm like, it's 35 minutes. They're like, well, why are you making it sound like it's a whole thing? Because let's say in LA, anywhere you go, it's like if you're driving around and you're in the industry and you're going to shoots or casting, whatever it is, you're driving an hour at least almost in every direction at any time of the day. The 35 minutes, we complain about it because the people here cannot drive. It's not that, you feel like they're trying to kill you on the road. It's the most stressful part of my week. I'll joke about this sometimes if I'm asking a model to, kind of climb in this little area that looks kind of sketchy, like as far as possible snakes or something, you know what I mean? I said, listen, you've already done the most dangerous part of the shoot, which was the drive here. So you made it this far. You're going to be all right. I promise nothing will be more dangerous or a threat to your life than that drive on 95. So anyways, but yeah, I grew up in Fort Lauderdale, and in fact, the only other place I've lived was in Orlando. I moved up there after I finished community college here. I got my AA, and then I went up there to UCF, and I like a little background that kind of has some context to how I got to this point as a full-time photographer, was that I've always been pretty good at drawing. Like that was my thing. If I had a little standout talent, it wasn't that I was super athletic. It was that I could draw, right? I actually had some friends who I'm still close friends with, guys who like I went to their weddings, and I've just never disconnected with since elementary school. And the two of my good friends, we only really became your friend because we thought you would draw some cool pictures for us. Because I would draw like comics. I would kind of repeat like stuff that's in a comic book and make it big and cool, and then kind of give them to my friends. So they were essentially my best friends were using me for drawings early on. So that was nice to find out. But the silver lining there is that I did realize early on that something like a picture has a value to it, right? So and I've kind of looked back at some point, I was writing some article for something, and I was like, man, these were all sort of important little milestones that so if somebody says, hey, how long have you been a photographer? I'm like, well, I feel like I've been sort of training for it my whole life, essentially. I kind of found, and I think most of us are, without knowing it, we are being trained for what we're eventually going to do. It's just figuring out what that perfect occupation that truly takes advantage of your best skill sets all wrapped up into one job. What is that? And that for me, as far as I know now, is photography. So back then it was drawing and doodling and all that stuff. And I sold a picture that I drew of Beavis and Butthead in middle school. That was the first time I was paid for, I was commissioned for a piece of art, was a fully colored in Beavis and Butthead drawing for $8. And anyways, fast forward, I got into drafting in high school. I wanted to, I thought I wanted to be an architect. I was like, okay, I'm good at drawing. How does anyone pick am I allowed to curse on this, by the way?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I was like, because I was thinking, how the fuck is anyone supposed to pick their career that they're going to be doing when they're old, but choose it at an age when you don't know shit yet. You're probably the thing the most about is socializing, right? Like that's really what you are probably most focused on throughout, middle school and early high school and all that. It's probably what you care the most about. You're not passionate about anything, as far as most kids, I would say, there's probably a few that love certain sports or this or that or whatever it is. For me, drawing was this thing that I knew I just had a little bit of and I hate to say a gift or anything like that, because that makes it sound like, well, if you weren't gifted with something when you were born, then you'll never be it. I don't believe that at all. I mean, I think, okay, I'm not going to be a NBA player. Like there's certain gifts, but it can all be learned. And I guess maybe what the actual skill, if I were to really boil it down, that helped me with drawing, it helps me today with photography, and it helps me keep my condo spotless, is my attention to detail. I'm like super OCD. Okay. So that's kind of the probably the thing that has been underlying all along. And I don't know where that came from, but that attention to detail is what helps me, look at the model in front of me and figure out what's off with the pose, or see that one little piece of hair's got to move and that bathing suit strap is twisted and this and that, but like all very fast and instant, and just be able to call it out. Boom, boom, boom. Let's fix that, and then move on. And then the same thing with retouching, to be able to just see little, oh, okay, there's something that the skin, the hue is a little, just slightly off in the red direction. Let's balance that out. Right. Like, so that must be something I've kind of always had, more of an attention to detail than say my friends. Right. So, fast forward, I thought I would do architecture. I got into drafting. I was actually good at it. It was very technical. I did 3 years of drafting in high school. What really sucked, and this, in hindsight, it doesn't suck because I'm really happy with what I'm doing now. But we had this really great drafting teacher. I mean, we didn't like him because he actually made us work really hard. But, in hindsight, he was a great drafting teacher for the first 2 years, because I had some really close friends that were in the classes with me. So it's like, oh man, this assignment that we got to do is pretty intense. Like we were doing these really detailed floor plans, and this was before AutoCAD. So we didn't have computer software yet. And and it's not that it didn't exist. It was pretty new, but we just didn't have it at high school. So everything was being drawn with T-squares and all that stuff, right? We had our drafting tables. So anyways, the third year of drafting, our teacher got replaced by this guy. I don't know what happened. He quit or whatever. So they brought in a new guy, and they basically took this dude who really, he was brought to the high school to be like an assistant football coach, but he had to be a teacher. So they just shoved him in where there was a hole in the staff, which was my drafting class. So it was such a joke. This guy has us doing like, we went from technical drawing, and then we actually got AutoCAD that third year, and we never used it because this teacher is not an architect, has no experience, shouldn't have been a drafting teacher, and has us doing drawings. I literally, for one of my assignments, the stippled dot drawing of Dr. Evil. Like, that was an acceptable passing assignment in my third year of drafting. It was such a waste of the previous 2 years. So that kind of changed my direction. And then I decided, I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to go for more of a graphic design type of degree. And that would be my focus in college. So now fast forward college, that's what I was going after. And to be honest, I just went to UCF because that's where all my friends went, and they happen to have a graphic design program. It wasn't the best. And the funny part of this, when people ask, oh, what did you go to? Did you go to school for photography? No, I went to school for digital media. That was the degree program. And I actually did a little bit of everything except for photography. I did video, digital music, 3D animation, game design, web design, a lot of like Illustrator, everything except for photography. Okay, that was like the one thing of everything all encompassing digital media I did not touch. And ironically, that's all I do now. But the cool part is that now I do my own websites. I do all the graphics related stuff. Like I don't ever have to hire anybody for anything. And that was cool. And at that same time, I also started getting into computers as I moved from getting my associate's degree at community college. I had this really easy job at the community college here at Broward College, and it was like the student life office. So I basically would just sit there and check people in, and it was like a hangout lounge for students who had downtime between their classes. So there was a ping pong table and a PlayStation, and it was kind of like this just hangout zone. And I was really good at ping pong at the time, and we would also do little events. So one of the other guys in there, he would make flyers for the events using, it was like Microsoft, not Word, but they had another app that was for kind of creating just like flyers and that kind of stuff, any type of collateral. So like marketing stuff. Anyways, whatever it was, that's actually how I started figuring out, that, this is kind of cool. I like that I'm able to create, but using a computer. And that's what sort of set my focus on graphic design. I started getting into it. I started helping design the flyers for the events and stuff. And just thought I I actually like this. Like I like this little creation process. But that's necessary, like to get this information and make sure people actually read it. Right. So anyways, it just, through all these experiences, it ties in nicely, because I know there's a lot of guys out there that come from backgrounds that are different than photography, but then get into photography because there's a nice lead in there, and you end up with a lot of skills that also play nicely with becoming a photographer. There's a lot of engineers that I always say there's like sort of two main groups of people that if they weren't always into photography, they either came from like an artistic background or an engineering background. Okay. And then I think for me, why this is like the best job for me is because I've always been, I think, a little good mix of right brain, left brain. So I was creative, but not like super out there. I'm not going to create some amazingly abstract art, but you could put something in front of me and I could draw it like to the T. Right. And I could come up with some creative things and whatever. And same thing with graphic design, but I'm not like the most creative person. And, but just to have some creative problem solving skills really helps with photography to make your work not completely boring. And then there's the technical side, and this is where the engineering guys love it, is because of all the equipment and the gear that you also benefit in really understanding. So I think the ultimate photographers are the people that are a good right brain, left brain sort of balance, and there's nothing better than photography for that. In fact, I'll tell you what I also figured out about why photography was the next obvious upgrade as far as jobs goes, because I basically, let's kind of fast forward through my whole life story there. But I did end up going into school for digital media. I got jobs doing graphic design, and it was fun for a while. The last job I was working at, I had for 7 years in a cubicle, working for KPMG. They're a big accounting firm. And I was hired as an in-house graphic artist, specifically, I was specifically hired to work on it was like the Florida's Turnpike engagement that we had. So I was basically making flyers and stuff for our Sun Pass. I mean, it's like not exactly very exciting design work. I mean, it was, and we had a marketing director who I was joking about this with somebody the other day, but you know, some jobs you just have to put your creativity aside and just give the client what they want. And we had this marketing director that just loved the crap that I would make, right? Like if I would say, hey Joe, we need a new flyer for this Father's Day thing. I'd come up with, I'd usually have to pitch like 3 ideas, give them a really rough looking design, right?
Yep.
And I would sometimes intentionally, because I was like, man, I love this one idea I have. They better fucking pick it, right? I please, like, don't take this other shit. So I would make one like really bad, just like or make 1 or 2 like well, one's okay, one's total shit, and then there's the one that I really like, and it should be the obvious pick.
Right.
They pick the shit every time.
You're like the letters aren't even, it's the words not even spelled right, and you pick that one, guys.
Yeah, right. And you know, somebody told me if I just put pink on the flyer, she'd pick it. You know what I mean? If there was that was it. That was the, like, there were these simple things that I found out, and this is the thing that I really love now is, you know, working for essentially myself. Well, I don't think that's a fair thing to say. I'm still working for my clients, right? But I have the ability to say no now, and that's huge. Right? Like, as far as the sense of freedom, right? And I think that's where, you know, you don't just feel trapped in the cubicle because of the actual confined space in which you work, but you're trapped to the fact that you have to say yes, sir, yes, ma'am, like, to everything, or you don't have a job, right? So you kind of have to, you could obviously, you know, well, I think that we could maybe, but ultimately you don't have the final say, right? And now, you know, at the very worst, and trust me, I get clients that sometimes suck, they're annoying, they're, you know, they want crap, right? they get to decide everything, right? When they're paying me, they're deciding. Are these ugly designs in this shitty location, and this is our friend that we hired as the model, right? So there are definitely times where I'm not, you know, it's just a paycheck job. That's it. You know, give them what they want, make them happy. This is not for me. They're not paying me to be happy. They're paying to get what they want, right? So, but at the very worst, if I could say no next time. So like, I only have to work with a bad client once, but sometimes I've had a job where I worked at this publishing company for a year, and my art director was a dick. He just did not like me because they always chose my designs over his from the day I got hired, the senior graphic artist or whatever. And he just had this resentment toward me, and he was also really not funny. I like funny people. This guy was not funny at all. In fact, he was so unfunny. I ended up I got a little like MP3 file of a cricket chirp, and I put it on my desktop so that every time he'd come in and like it was a small office, so you could just easily like say something to everybody, and he'd say some shit that he thought was hilarious. And I just hit the little cricket sound, and it would just chirp up because it was just dead silent. And then everybody starts laughing. And has such a poor sense of humor that he didn't understand the cricket. And now he thinks everybody's laughing at his joke, but just a little late. And it was the best thing because he never knew like that he should have felt really stupid every time I did that. It actually encouraged him to do it more, which gave me more opportunities to chirp him out. And anyways, my point of this was that he, you know, it was like I had to work with that guy every day. I had no I mean, if I wanted to keep my job, and what do? You say, fuck this guy, I quit. It's not easy. You can't just decide tomorrow you want to get a new job. So you can't just quit. Like you're trapped, right? Like you get trapped in these shit jobs. And, so what I did is I started putting my feelers out for a little while, trying to find a new job. It's just like, don't quit, just hang in there. Don't be stupid. I know you fucking want to quit, but just hold on to it so you don't end up, broke and unable to pay rent. But use this as your motivation to take all of your time and energy you have outside of work to put toward finding that next move, which ended up being KPMG, which was honestly an amazing job. I was really lucky to have that job, but I sat in this building and I looked around. There was, I'm 20, I was 25, I think, when I started that job. I want to say 24, 25. And, again, worked there till I was 30. Oh, fuck. How long have I been doing this now? About 30, 31, something like that, right? I've been full-time photography for about 6 years now. So,
okay.
But I got into it. I was doing photography for about 5 years. I would say it was 2008 when I got my first like Nikon DSLR, and started getting into it. Okay. That was 2008. So 11 years ago, I got my camera about this in April of 2008. So, that's the really cool part is now I can say, okay, that person sucked to work with. I'm never going to fucking work with them again. Right? Like not, okay, I'll see you tomorrow and the next day and the next day and the next day and forever until, I do something drastic. Right? So it's a kind of a beautiful thing. So while there are the pros and cons, I mean, don't get me wrong. There are nice parts about having a Monday through Friday and a routine, and it helps put the rest of your life into a schedule and a routine. And when it comes to maybe, eating and working out and this and that, and being on the same schedule as most of the people around you, so now my schedule's a little all over the place, but I would never go back. I would never trade the freedom of my schedule right now. There's just no comparison. But I'm glad I did that because I know there are people that maybe come out of school and then go right into photography and they're struggling and they're like, man, this is fucking hard. Well, luckily I had that sort of structured, disciplined job setting that has carried over into the way I treat photography as a business. And, I think that, in hindsight, there's times where I'm like, man, I wish I got a camera sooner. Like, man, I wish I got into it when I was 21. Like, fuck, imagine what and then I remind myself, I'm like, you know what? I learned a lot through, sitting in that office. Cause I look around at some of my photographer friends who are struggling and they have no organizational skills. I mean, when you work for some big firm like KPMG, there's a protocol for everything. Everything is by the book. Everything is, the dollars and cents are counted for everything, right? It's a big accounting firm. That's what KPMG is. And, that's now if I were to show you this is where this is where I keep track of my, my finances. And this is how I keep track of my schedule and this and that. It's super organized. In fact, it's probably one of the things that people think I should teach a class on. Every time I sort of just tease into it, maybe on Twitch or at my workshop, they're like, shit, you should teach a class on this and kind of getting organized as far as a business goes, as being a photographer. So, there were a lot of good things that came from that. So I hope maybe people listening that are in that stage where it's like, okay, I know I love photography. I know I could do it as a career. And fuck, I'm at this job and it's, I just hate it. I hate to drive to work every day. It makes me miserable. There's something you're getting out of that, and you sometimes have to dig a little deep to find it and appreciate it. And sometimes you might not really appreciate it until afterwards. It might be a hindsight thing, but for me, I can definitely say that those were not years wasted by any means. So
totally.
So I'm just really happy with the way sort of things just rolled out, and it was never an overnight experience. And there was a long time where I was doing photography and, really getting into it. Let's say I picked up that camera in 2008 and I didn't put it down from like the day I got it. And it was just immediately like, oh, wow. Like, look at like, you know, this is amazing. And just to preface this part of it, I dabbled a little bit with photography for like 2 other periods of my life. One was in middle school when I was skating a lot. And I'd always watch these like skate videos and surf videos and all this stuff. I was like, man, and looking through the magazines, I just loved the pictures and stuff. So I would go out with my friends, I would borrow my dad's film camera, and I would sort of document our little skate sessions. So that was my early sort of dabbling with photography, and also with video. I would be out there with the VHS camcorder in the ramps that we would build out in the front on the street, and just recording everything that we did. And then fast forward, let's say once I was in maybe high school or got a car, once I could drive, I wasn't like skating anymore. You know, I was not really concerned about that. Fast forward, I think it was in college. I went on this surf trip. It was like a little dedicated surf trip with 2 of my best friends. Stayed with one of our friends who lived out in California in Malibu, and we did this little like week out there, and I just don't like cold water. I was like, I'm out there. I remember I was out there, and it's fucking freezing, and like half of my body went like completely numb. I did not have the right wetsuit. I had like a Florida, you know, like I don't know,
really thin suit on, yeah,
1-ply wetsuit or whatever, you know, and
yep.
And it just was not working. So I'm just like, guys, fuck this. I'm going in. I'll take pictures. I had just gotten this little Sony point and shoot camera for Christmas, so I get back on the beach, I'm taking pictures, and I'm like, damn, I was like, I actually like this. And then they'd come in, they'd see the pictures, they get all excited. It's like, oh, wow, I bring much more value holding the camera than I do out there. I'm not good enough for anybody to be inspired by my surfing skills. You know what I mean? So it's sort of, it gives you a little bit of a role, you know, even when, and the other thing that's cool, we used to call it Kodak courage. So when, if you were out with a little group skating and you've got the one crazy guy who's like considering doing something completely fucking insane, like he's going to jump off these like 20 steps and do a 360 or something, you know, you bring out the camera, that automatically like that increases the chance like 500% that he's going to go for it, you know?
Yeah.
So
exactly.
So that was the Kodak courage. And it's funny because it is still true. It's when you put that camera in front of some you know model, you're putting the pressure on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You are. It's like it's go time. You know, they don't walk down the sidewalk all cool and sexy and whip their hair around. Right? It's like it's not normal stuff that people do in front of the you know
right.
in front of the lens. So it does have this. There's sort of this little powerful effect that the camera, you know, puts that pressure on people that it's go time now, you know? And that's how it was when we were skating. And then when I was doing the pictures of my buddies surfing, I was like, oh, this is cool. I enjoy this more than I did being out there freezing my ass off. So, and you guys like the pictures that I'm taking. So great. This is perfect. Everybody's happy. It's a win-win. And then I continued shooting, and that's why I ended up buying a DSLR, is that I took that little point shoot and I started going, we were wakeboarding a lot because I was living in Orlando at the time, and I was always bringing it out on my friend's boat. And he had this little junker boat, but he lived on a lake with a bunch of pros. So like Orlando is like this wakeboard capital because it's good weather. It's good enough weather all year that you don't need a wetsuit. It's just comfortable water temperature pretty much all year round. And so that means they can just practice all year. And there's so many lakes. It's like a little lake capital of the States. So anyways, I was always bringing that same little Sony out and snapping photos because I had some friends that are actually really good wakeboarders. And I was taking pictures of that. So again, it's just sort of this sense of like purpose within a group. It was kind of cool. And I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that. You know, it's like if you bring your camera, if you're pretty good with the camera and you bring it to your family event and you take pictures, like everybody's going to love it. Like you are putting smiles on people, you know, you're giving them something. Yeah. You're giving them, you are like the official like time capsule creator of things. Right. So
totally.
It's cool. It's a very, you know, I joke sometimes like, well, I'm not out there curing cancer or anything, but I am capturing times of people when they're at their best. Even these models, like they're going to look back when they're 80, like, man, look, I was fucking killing it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
yeah.
It hurt. I was starving and but damn, I had a great run,
Yeah, no, totally.
And they'll be proud of that and they'll show it off forever. Right. So,
yeah, exactly.
So it's cool. It's a very cool, special role to play when you're the guy, creating the time capsule, and so that was sort of how this all kind of. That's a part of what I love about it, and I got that Nikon because I was really shooting a lot on the boat, and my dad hit me up and I had put him onto this website. It was like Fat Wallet or Slick Deals or one of those where they would kind of tell you, there's a price mistake right now at Circuit City on a Nikon D80. So my dad told me about that. He's like, Joey, I think this is the camera that I have. And right now it's like $500 off by accident. You should go get it. So I did. And I still spent like $800. I was like, oh man, it's a lot of money. Fuck. For a thing, it's like just for fun. I'm not a photographer. Man, I didn't put that camera down. I carried the manual, the user manual, like it was like a little Bible in my pocket, and I would literally be out on the boat and I'm like, oh, there's got to be a way for this thing to track. And then I would go to the focus section and then read about it, be like, there is. Okay, cool. And I was just kind of learning on the fly constantly. Right. And then I meet this photographer out on my friend's boat. He shows up, he's got a Nikon D40 and he's like, hey man, I just, check this out. He was kind of showing off, I just did this shoot today and it was like some model. And I was like, oh my God, like, are you kidding? Like, this is awesome. Like, wow. I wouldn't even know where to like get in on that. Like how that's so cool. Like, it just seemed fun. I wasn't like thinking business or anything like that. And he's like, yeah, well, there's a meet and greet coming up. And this was in Orlando because it's Orlando meet and greet and they did it every quarter. It still actually happens. It's a pretty cool event. In fact, we're doing one in South Florida that's kind of similar this Saturday. So this local studio, we're putting together this sort of like kind of a shootout. They're hiring a couple models, they're making a couple sets, but really it's just like a little community mingle mixer type of thing. So anyways, I go to this event in Orlando and that was it, man. I was hooked. It was like models, photographers, hair and makeup. And I felt like for the first time, I remember at this time I'm working at my office job with a bunch of people that went to school for like accounting or finance or this or that. I was like never around people. When I was in school, I was constantly surrounded by people that were sort of into the same stuff as me, right? I was in the digital media program with a bunch of, people that were also kind of into creating and this and that. But like once you get out of school and then you go to some job, it's like not that there's anything wrong with you people that I work with, but I wouldn't necessarily, we don't hang out on the weekend. We're not peas in a pod, So I think when I went to this event, I finally felt that again for the first time in a long time. That's why I really like these little community type of events that sort of build camaraderie within the community. And especially with photography, because it can be so sort of egotistical and it's because it's kind of a one-man sport, but I don't
totally
like to look at it that way. So anyways, I go to this thing in Orlando. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. I'm in. And by the way, like in hindsight, looking at the photos that the guy showed me, that this photographer, again, I use air quotes on that. It was like a model. So just like, I'll paint the picture. It was like this, like very fair skinned model, black hair, tattoos, kind of goth, wearing a silver, like shiny silver bikini with clear high heels, standing in front of the downtown library. Like, so it was horrific, but I still was like, wow, and it was so model mayhem. And anyways, that was enough to get me to be like, oh wow, okay, what's this event thing that you're going to? And I went to it, and that was it. I was like now in it, and I started going to the little critiques, and that was the first place that I took some pictures of a model, and I had shot a couple models, like maybe some over somebody else's shoulder and whatnot. And then I made a Model Mayhem account, slowly did a shoot here and there. Like for that first year, it was like I did a handful of shoots, but I was still shooting the wakeboarding stuff. I was shooting everything. My friends, then as I got into it, let's say by year 2, I started getting people to hire me a little bit, like somebody said to me, I think it was my second shoot, there a couple things that were said to me that gave me confidence that like this could be something I could charge for. And it was a second shoot I did with a model who says to me, you should charge people. Like I've paid for shoots that didn't come out this good. I was like, really? And don't get me wrong, like that, there was nothing amazing about the shoot I did, but it just showed like the sort of, there's a lot of like low standards in photography.
Totally.
Yeah. And people pay for crap photography all the time. Okay. So if you're decent, that should give you hope. In fact, I will tell you, one of the biggest motivators was going to that meet and greet. A week later, they did this thing called the Eat and Critique. So they basically, whatever photographers wanted to show up, basically bring pictures on a little thumb drive, and they would put them on a projector. Some guy in the group would get us access to the conference room at his work office or whatever, and we'd have pizza, and then there was sort of a guy that would head the critique, and then it was actually a really cool idea to get feedback on your photos. And I was looking at these photos that they're putting up. I'm like, oh my God. I was like, these are awful. I'm like, and I'm not a photographer, but I could see it. Like I can't always explain why, but I'm like, they just look so unintentional, like they just,
right.
If somebody just handed a 5-year-old the camera and said, take a picture of her, and they did, and it would be like the same photo as this guy took. Right. So,
yeah.
So I was like, that was actually one of my biggest early motivators. I was like, wait, these are photographers. Like these are people that this is what they do or like really into. And that in itself gave me this like, wow, okay, I think I could do something here. And keep in mind, I had been doing, graphic design now for years. So I already knew my way around Photoshop. So I could at least salvage this sort of, crappy lighting that that would come out of my first photos. So I was able to sort of fix things. Right. I definitely had to rely a little more on Photoshop in the early shoots, but I at least had taste to know what to fix. Right. Like I could at least spot my mistakes. And there are a lot of people out there that are just like, yeah, look at this. And it's just like, we'd all be rolling our eye like, what is that? And I just, that was one of the big motivators. And then this girl tells me, I've paid for shoots. And then another girl tells me later on, who I'm still good friends with, she says, you're going to be a really good photographer when you shoot better models. And I was like, what? Like, what is it? What the fuck does that mean? Like, you know what I mean? At that point, I already had a little lighting setup that I was using and stuff. I was kind of figuring it out. This is probably in maybe toward the end of my second year of photography, or maybe like kind of the third year, whatever it was. But I had a good little, had some momentum under me. I was shooting a lot more. And yeah, I didn't get that at first, but now I do. It's there's a lot of pieces to the puzzle, and you as a photographer have to own all of them. Like you get blamed, right? If I put out a photo that has just clown makeup, right? Well, that's not my fault, right? It was the makeup artist. But otherwise, look what I did. I framed it nice. I lit it nice. Blah blah blah. It's like, so what? It's a bad photo. Makeup sucks.
Yeah.
I should have stepped in. You should have said something. You should have. You're the ringleader. You're the general of the shoot. So you have to make those calls. You have to direct the entire team. Oh well, yeah. I mean, the model just didn't pose good. Okay, direct her. Tell her how to pose. Well, I'm not a model. I don't. So that's the thing that I think photographers that get stuck are the ones that don't take they don't take the full lead,
Yeah.
And,
no, totally.
That was something it took me kind of a long time to figure out that, man, why is, what do I do when I have this, super amateur model? And I'm glad I never hired a model, right? I never hired a professional model to come in so I could upgrade my portfolio quickly. Right. And I think what was good that happened in sort of me going to slow, like I had to always work with models that were at my level of experience. Right. So when I was, I couldn't get and this was all, at that time, it was all through Model Mayhem. That was like how we would reach out to models. Okay.
Does Model Mayhem still exist?
It does. Actually, I have a client that about twice a year, we need just very relatable people. They have me put out a casting through
relatable.
Through Model Mayhem. Yeah, that's it. Wow, you look relatable.
Wow, that's insane.
Yeah. So we could use that could be a new thing. That could be a new, nice, like passive aggressive way to.
Oh man, that's
Yeah.
terrible.
Or I joked with my friend. I wasn't serious, but she goes, "Oh God, I feel like shit." I was like, listen, you look editable." And she has a good sense of humor and knows that like I'm only kidding, and
Yeah.
I would never say that and insult somebody, you know.
Totally.
But I thought it was like kind of a funny way to describe something. You look editable.
Right.
It
That
can be
makes sense.
fixed. So, anyways, where was I? But yeah, that was what she told me is like, you know, when you start shooting better models, like, yeah, basically what she was really saying, I think how it could have been worded better is when you raise the bar as far as everything else besides the stuff that you know how to use the camera, you know how to light, you need to raise the bar as far as your team, you know, and that's, you know, the models that you put in front of your camera, the hair and makeup people that you use, the wardrobe that you use, the locations that you use. It's like all those pieces of the puzzle are important. And your photo is kind of as good as the weakest link. You know, it's sort of like there's one little chink in the armor, and that will kill the whole shoot. So
yeah.
So yeah, those were. I've just went on for maybe 30 minutes. I apologize. You
Nah, it's all good, man.
As you want, but that's really that's kind of how I got here, you know, and that was the, to me, those are sort of those like milestone events, and at some point I felt confident. I did watch and I say this. Here's a little advice to photographers that are okay. I have my day job, but I want to do photography. Start keeping track of your photography income and expenses.
Yeah.
Today. Like, don't wait till tomorrow. Start it today. If you're busy today, start it tomorrow. But go back and figure out. So I think I stopped and realized I needed to do this at about a year and a half, almost 2 years into it. Now, granted, that first year I got like maybe made $1,000 off of photography. You know, it was like nothing hard to go back and figure out like the couple of things that people paid me to do. But say by the end of year 2, I said, shit, how do I know if this could be a feasible job, you know, a career? How do I know that this could be a move upward in my career, you know, instead of going backwards and cutting my pay in half, you know, from what I currently get from this day job. Right. So going back in and starting to record everything that I was doing was such a huge, like that gave me the confidence. At one point I saw, holy fuck, I'm making more money now with just my shooting on the weekends, editing on the weeknights than I am Monday through Friday at this day job. Imagine what would happen if I dropped those 5 days, you know, those 40, 50 hours a week to put toward photography. I could probably double what I'm making with photography. And that's exactly what happened. So, you know, I was nervous for a while, and I said, okay, I think by year 3, I was making about the same as I was at my day job. By year 4, I was making more. Year 5. And then I think I quit. It was 5 years into photography. I quit the day job, which was 7 years at that day job. Okay.
Wow.
And what was important and why I did it sort of conservatively is, look, you can have a good year. Okay. And if it's early on, you don't know yet, are these clients, do they stick around? The best thing you can get are clients that, you know, they've got a new line every season that they have to shoot. If we're talking fashion, right? Are they going to hire me for the next shoot? You know, okay, it's one thing to be able to land the shoot in the first place. That means you marketed well, right? You had a nice portfolio, but let's face it, like to be realistic, if let's say you've been shooting for 5 years, it's not that hard to come up with or let's say 4 pretty awesome images each year. And now your portfolio 5 years later you've got 20 awesome images on your website. But you could be really inconsistent and achieve that. You know, you could just sort of like have 1 out of 5 shoots is good. The rest are kind of crap, and you can still put together a nice portfolio. So that will let you sell yourself using your perfectly curated photos. And then when you show up and you don't hit it every time, they don't hire you back. So it's one thing to be, have a good portfolio. It's a completely different and more important thing to be consistently good. Like to no matter what you're handed, you make something out of it, right? And no excuses. And that was the cool part, is that I actually waited before I quit to see that, damn, okay, this client is hiring me every year now. I'm their lead photographer for this calendar shoot thing we do in Vegas every year. Or I was shooting the Atlanta Falcons cheerleader calendar, and they kept hiring me back to do that. And then I was so there were these jobs. I was like, damn, okay, that's a really good sign. That's what I needed to see, is that not that I could just have one good year, but then maybe everybody goes ghost next year on me,
Yeah.
And that was really important. So I do say that is you've got to be consistent, and if you're going to go for it as a career, and that's probably the toughest part to do,
Yeah. But you mentioned a lot just in your whole story, just kind of like that. I think it was crucial though. So people, even me, like I can look back at my past and how I did things. And, like if you've never worked in an office job, and I've seen the emails that photographers send me that they send to their clients when their client's pissing them off.
Oh,
and
my God.
Listen,
yeah.
I'm like, listen, I know how you feel. Trust me. Like, and I agree with you. Like,
yeah. Their emotions come out, which should never,
Yeah. But like in the office, you would never let that happen. I'd say like, hey, give it 24 hours, sleep on it, and kill it with kindness. And because again, the biggest thing too, on the good side, a lot of times that I found with clients and my office life helped with this, and just, having different little jobs of customer service, it's like most of the time it's just a communication issue. Yep. Like you set an expectation, or there was an expectation that you didn't address, and then so they expected something from you. You didn't perform that particular thing, and you're like, oh crap, I would have done that. If like, for my example, like, and even for you, this could apply. So I'm sure we both deliver our photos like digitally, right? Like, hey, here's full resolution, edited JPEGs, like, it's easy enough for you to do. But a client could easily be like, oh, are you never going to send a thumb drive? And you're like, oh, well, we don't really do that anymore. We don't have to. But that's one of those like easy things where you're like, oh, this client is being such a jerk. They want a thumb drive. And you're like, well, they might have just thought that that's how they got it. They didn't know, and there's so much in that. And I think I appreciate you kind of sharing that scope of the value. So then now, what does that look like practically? Invite us kind of as much as you can into the industry. You gave a little bit with like the fashion or swimwear as far as like, hey, they have a new line coming up. So hopefully once a year or once a quarter, you'll get hired again. Does it look like that most of the time for most of your clients? Or do you sign on for like a year with, say, we'll just make up like Adam and Joey's t-shirt company, and then have like a retainer? Like, how does that practically work? You don't have to give us like how much you get paid, but like literally, what does that look like? Or is it only project based, or all kinds of stuff?
Well, look, here's the one thing I should say. There's no sort of standardization here, right? So if you were to talk to one of my photographer buddies out in LA that's doing work with these big clients, like he might have a completely different setup than I do here. So using Miami's market as the example, because that's the only one I really know a lot about. It's a mix of, I would say each year there are probably there's this sort of handful of clients that just they like working with me. They come back to me. They know they're getting good, consistent results. They are happy with what I charge them. So it's not that I'm on any retainer or anything like that. They just reach out to me. Hey, we want to start planning for the fall line. What's your availability looking like in the next month? And then and that's where it'll start, right? It's just as simple as that. There's, cool. It's pretty casual, right? And that's cool too, because I do have a couple clients where they said, hey, our next shoot is going to be on these dates. Are you available? And it's like, oh shit. Okay. There is no, they're not giving me some choice here. It's like either make it work and take it or not, but there's never, I don't have anything that's set up, that, you're going to have to hire me for the next year. And maybe that would be a smart move for some things, but I would just rather, here's maybe the problem with that. Let's say I go that route, and it's like, yeah, I got them locked in for the year, right? And I do the first shoot, and you kind of have this little sense of, you own it, right? And I just would rather be in the position where I've got to work hard and knock this out of the park to get the next one, because I don't want them being resentful of me because they bought into me for a year and they have no choice, but they didn't love what I did with the last shoot. It's like, look, I just want it to be fair on all ends, right? And the way that I currently communicate with my clients is that I could change my pricing. I could let them know, hey, listen, just so you know, I'm charging a little more for my my e-com shoots because of this. I got some upgrades, and I usually will have something to tell them. I was like, oh, okay, cool, right? And not that I'm just pulling numbers out of my ass, to make more money, but I really, it's just on a shoot by shoot basis. So I just get that email like today, hey, we're doing the next shoot for the Hard Rock Cafe brand, what's your availability looking like? That's literally the email I get. It's the same email I get from any client is, hey, we're looking at the next shoot and we'd like to do it around these dates. There you go. And by the way, it's something that if, for photographers that have a little trouble pricing things out, I highly encourage you to go on my website and feel free to use this as a template. But if you go on my little contact page, and this is on joeywrightphoto.com, and there's the contact page, it says, who are you? Like, are you a model, a brand, or is this a general inquiry? If you click on brand, I have a little form on there. And my site is simple. You can do this. It's a Squarespace site. But I have a form that asks all the questions that I need answered in order to, like today, I had this model that I've worked with for a past client. She messages me on Instagram, DMs me, and says, hey, I have a swimwear brand that they must hire her as the model always, but she wants me to shoot the next thing. And so she's trying to pass my name through. She goes, how much do you charge for a 2-day shoot? It's like, there's no 2-day shoot number, right?
Yeah,
so
you need more information. Yeah.
Yeah, I go, hey, I said, I would actually need some more info in order to give them an accurate quote. Please send them to this link and have them submit my form. Thank you, right? And then give them that link. And that's how I sort of funnel, the information that I need through that contact form. And it asks all the important questions because every shoot is different. It's like 2 days, okay. Well, we have, and then it says, how many looks do you want to shoot? And it might say 50 looks. Be like, oh, okay. All right. Well, that tells me that this is going to be a fast-paced shoot for 2 days on location. If this is all, everything's got to be a little unique and there's got to be variety in there, right? So, or they might say, oh, I have 40 looks and I want to shoot on this day. It's like, whoa, that's 40 looks. I need 2 days to shoot it. Unless you want me to just like fly through it. I've done 80 looks in one day before on location, and it's not fun and not super creative because you're just like, you're going nonstop and there's another model ready for you as soon as you're done spending, 3 minutes with this one. But I get all that information, I collect that, and then I have a chance to really figure out, what the scope of this shoot will be and then what I should charge for it. Right. So that's kind of how this works. It's really a case by case basis. Now, the only thing that I standardize are my test shoots. So that's, if anyone that doesn't know like that, because it sounds like a weird thing, a test shoot. What does that mean? Are you trying out the model? But it's basically a shoot for a portfolio, right? So it's not for anything. It's not for a brand. It's just a portfolio shoot for a model. So that's, I would say if I were to sort of divide up, make a little pie chart, I've got my commercial shoots. So those are for brands. And those are what I want the most of, right? Because like one good commercial job could be the equivalent pay of 5 to 10 test shoots, right? But that one job might be a few days of shooting and then a couple days of dealing with post-production versus 5 to, let's say, 10 test shoots. That's 10 different days that I have to go out and shoot, 10 different people that I have to communicate with and deal with personalities, and then 10 days of editing. So we're talking about, 20 days of actual work versus 5 days of work, and so that's just working smarter and not harder, right? So that's what I aim for is I want the brands, and then the test shoots are kind of like my filler. Right. So I don't ever feel obligated to take every test that somebody, messages me through my site and inquires for a test. I have sort of a waiting list, and then I can kind of like, all right, I've got a week where there's nothing big going on, let's go ahead and reach out to one of the girls that wants to set up a test, right? And then I can go and fill in that time. So it's kind of nice. I kind of have now the ability to, if I need to leave a little space and things, and I'll tell you, I was bad at this. I did not budget my time properly. I was too eager to say yes to everything and too afraid to let anything go. Right. And that's a bad situation. That will stress you out as a photographer, and you will start to dislike photography if you're not careful, right? If you bite off more than you can chew with it. And I have been guilty of that, and I'm finally getting good at it. Like this week, I could do a test on Friday. There's a girl that's in town that wants to hire me, and I'm just like, you know what? I fucking worked hard this last week. Like, I need a day off. I could use a little breathing room, and I'm just going to pass on that. And I'm actually going to take that day and start working on this new I'm going to put together a sort of not a workshop, but where I sort of curate this shoot day where I hire all the models, get the location, hair and makeup, blah, blah, blah. The photographers just pay to come in and shoot for their portfolio. But I set everything up, and it's just this like turnkey shoot. So anyways, I'm like, you know what? I'd rather work on that than go make the, $1,000 for that shoot when I could work on this thing that could be this, great little event that I have going on every quarter or whatever, right? So I kind of have to make those decisions and not be afraid to sometimes just say no and give myself a chance to breathe and to really maintain my love for photography, because I just see guys getting burnt out left and right. I see guys come in and they come in strong and they're doing good work and they're just shooting and they're saying yes to every model that say, oh, we should shoot, and they're not getting paid by them. And then they're having fun and they like doing those shoots and exciting, and then they realize a year later, like, no one's paying them. And that's because they didn't put their foot down at some point and say, like, hey, yes, I would like to shoot you, but I need to get paid, right? Like there's a point where I see guys all the time get caught up in the fun of the photography, and they just say yes to every model. And, oh my God, we should shoot. I love your work. Like, okay, like, dude, you have value. Like it's work, and you're going to leave the shoot all happy. And now you got to go home and go through, 1,500 images. And then you got to spend a whole afternoon editing, and they're not there anymore. The model's gone and they're off having fun. Like, you're not going to be happy at the end. You're going to have fun during the shoot. And then the other part is the guys that just say yes to all the shoots because the shooting is fun, but it's like, but you got the editing, don't forget.
Yeah.
And then they don't do that. And then they're the guy that, well, it's been 6 months and I haven't got my photos yet. Well, it's because you just said yes to all the shoots, but you didn't budget the time for the editing, or you didn't treat it like a job,
Yep.
So I see these sort of things happen a lot, and it either leaves guys, it leaves photographers either getting burnt out or kind of feeling, like they're getting the shit end of the stick, and then they start getting resentful of it or whatever. And man, I'm it's one of the things that I'm just really working hard to just keep balanced, is that, that time for me, the ability to say, no, look, this is what I do. This is, sorry, you're beautiful. I'm sure we can make great images, but, I do charge for this. So, that's kind of it, is you have to treat it like a business. And when we were first, right before we kind of got on the call or started the official interview, and you kind of asked, like, oh, what was it that you asked me about? It was kind of in regard to an industry that's kind of like
oh yeah. So in an industry with like swimwear and models and like specifically, at least for you, your Instagram is like primarily women in bikinis, swimwear and stuff like that. And then your Instagram story is usually filled with your face on those girls.
Yeah.
I want to know. I think a lot of people see this and kind of like a boudoir, like. I associate that we'll put it this way. You're the only guy under 40 that I know that shoots swimwear. So that's the first thing. But the two, how do you just not be like a creepy, weird guy during this time and make people feel comfortable? And like, I'm a wedding photographer. I've been alone in a getting ready room with a bride a ton of times. And most of the time I'm on the more awkward side. I'm like, hey, I hope she's okay. Hey, I hope she feels okay. Like I can leave. I usually communicate those. And most of the time, those brides are like, no, Adam, it's cool. Don't be weird. Or my wife is like, Adam, don't be weird. But how does that work for you? Because I feel like that's one big hesitation for a lot of big photographers, good photographers, to like reach out and be like, hey, we could still tell you that you look beautiful, and this look looks really great, but how do people not be a creep in your industry?
Well, there should almost be a class on that. And I actually, when I do my workshop, I have a workshop once a year, and it was just about a month ago. And it's one thing that I talk on is the communication and your choice of words, right? So I'll tell you a story in a second, but I'll start with this. I think, first of all, my personality, I'm not a, I hope that people consider me as sort of like a likable personality, right? Like that's what I strive to be, is just like not the pain in the ass, not the annoying guy, I try to be like the person that I want to be friends with. Okay. And, talking to you, Adam, I could tell you seem like a pleasant guy. You're nice. You're, you're not, some overbearing alpha, and that would not go well in the room with the bride getting ready.
Right.
Because if, at the end of the day, a big part of this job is sort of customer service, making the model feel comfortable. I mean, even the shoot I did last week, this model came in, and I know she's like a New York model. She's probably used to just changing on the street and this and that, whatever. And I go, here, before you change, let me get this. I have a changing tube. And she's like, what? It's like, well, I could just, I was like, no, this, I'm like, look, nobody on the beach deserves a free show. So just take a second. Then I pop it, and she didn't even know what I was pulling out. That's actually the funny thing, is how many models I pull out the little changing tube that's been around forever from Sunbounce, and yet they're like, what is that? Oh, wow. And they've never seen it. I'm like, well, that's kind of a shame, because that means a lot of photographers aren't really, going 100% on customer service, because that just seems like an obvious, courtesy to have. If it was your mom or your sister or your girlfriend or your wife or your best female friend out there with a photographer, you would hope they would offer them that courtesy, right? So, so I pop out the tube. She's like, and I could tell she was like, almost like thought it was unnecessary. I'm like, just use it. Like, just like, look, there's a lot of creeps out on the beach. Like, just use the tube, like whatever,
Yeah. Or it's up to her at that point if she's like used to it or whatever. But it's like you're showing that you're in a good spot. You're showing that she's safe with you. Which is cool. Or he is safe.
And there's a lot of little things that kind of happen throughout the shoot that are let them know they should feel comfortable, right? And I never like oh my God, I don't say like you look sexy or oh wow, that's hot. That's a hot pose. Oh my God, like, you know what I mean? There's some guys that it's like they've seen this stupid fucking shows or whatever where they're meant to be over the top, like in the photographer. Some like you could tell the photographers that they got their like their notes from watching like America's Next Top Model or something, and they're like all like, yeah baby, yeah, and they're just just doing that horse shit, like over the top routine. Or they saw some movie with a photographer from the 80s. It's like almost like if you think about it, it's like they joke about it on it was like Austin Powers in Gold. Remember when he's shooting, like at the very beginning, he's like a photographer in the first scene or whatever, and he's like, yeah baby, yeah. It's like, yes, no. Yeah. And it's just like that's the whole point. It's a joke. Like, like you're an idiot if you act like that. Anyways, I don't think there's a lot of guys out there actually doing that, but there are. You have to, I think, treat this. The simplest thing I tell people is like, look, just treat each model like it is your. They didn't show up. It's not a date. Okay. Don't mix your your desire to talk to women with your shoot, right? Like save that for when you're at the bar on the weekend. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not the time and the place. So I think that's what happens sometimes is you have photographers that are just so wrapped up into it, and it's like their whole life. And it's like basically they're, and again, this is some small number, but it definitely happens where I think they rely too much on photography to fulfill every part of their life. Right? And that could be their social life, their career, their social life, like, being around women, like, cause look, all guys want to talk to women, be around women. If you're a single guy, like you're kind of always on the, you're always on the lookout or whatever. But that's why, like, you still need to have a life so you can go get that shit out of your system and then come to your shoot and just treat it like it's a job. And that's exactly what I do, right? Like, I have my buddies that I go out with, and I'm single. So, like, we go out, I talk to women, whatever. And then that's it. Cool. I do my socializing in my own time, but I don't combine it. I don't blur that line with photography. Right. And that's not to say, like, I don't want to sound like, the white knight that, like, I've dated models before, because that's a natural thing too, that you tend to, as you get older, you basically date from the pool that you are, like, that you're in. Right. So when you're in college, exactly, you're probably chances are you'll meet, the people that you date in your classes, or, in your little social scene or whatever. Then you go into your career. And even at my last day job, like, I dated one of the girls that worked in my building, because you get to know them over time. And it's like, fuck, you spend so many hours at work. And I mean, personally, I don't like to go out to, like, bars to meet people. I just don't like these completely unfiltered scenarios where you don't know anything about the person, and it's really just a bunch of horse shit that you're like, all right, like, I don't really know anything about you. I only have seen, all I can do is just judge you on what I've just seen from across the bar. And do you want to drink? And what, all right. I just, that's, to me, is a very, like, it's sort of unnatural, kind of weird, awkward way to sort of form relationships. I've always tended to date people that I was introduced to or something, and then hung around. I had some time. It wasn't just like, hey, can I buy you a drink? Right. So I think what happens naturally is, as you get into career mode in your life, like, you also date from your job pool, in a sense, not that it's smart to, you don't dip your pen in the company ink. Right. But yeah. I have met girls, like, one of the last girls that I dated, I had done a shoot with her a few years earlier, and she was really sweet. I really liked, I thought she was beautiful and really nice and friendly and this and that. And she had a boyfriend at the time. And so I didn't even, like, look at her, like, and again, it was a shoot, it was a job. So there was nothing there, but okay, that's how I met her. And then fast forward a few years, I ran into her at some event, and then we talked, and then we hung out, and then we went to dinner the next night. Right. And it was just like, cool. That's how I started dating her. It wasn't like, I set up a shoot with her and I was like going for it. And you know what I mean? It was just like, no, I met her, and then later on, and we reconnected, and then got to actually start to get to know each other, and then started dating, for 6 months or whatever. So I wanted to say, like, that, like, I don't want to sound like this, like, what an angel guy, like, and nobody should ever date the model. But when you're on a shoot, or you're on a job, that's not the time. In fact, I even tell photographers this. I said, look, if you're like, this is say to any of my, younger, like, sometimes photographers that I become friends with, and they sort of, maybe they assist me, or we become buddies, and they ask me for advice on things. When it comes to that topic, I say this: look, if you have a shoot with somebody and there's a little mutual good vibe going on, I go, just don't follow up on it until the shoot is done. Like, right? Don't mix it with the shoot. It's okay. Like, if you're both flirting and it's mutually, welcomed, great. That's cool. That happens. You hit it off with people sometimes. But what I say is this: to avoid being the creep, just, like, don't cross any lines. Finish the job, and that means send the photos. Right? Let's say it was a shoot you did for fun, okay, or a shoot you did for pay, whatever it was. If you think you had a good connection with that person, whether you're a male photographer, female photographer, shooting a guy, whatever it is, right? Here's the problem with, I think we had a good connection. I'm going to ask them if they want to hang out, but I haven't delivered the photos yet. Well, you sort of have, without maybe intentionally knowing it, you've created a hostage situation, right?
Yeah, a power dynamic.
There's a ransom. Yes, exactly. So they're in this awkward position to think, well, if I say no, are they going to get, like, all butthurt and then not send me the photos? Like, fuck, I don't want to not get the photos. So It's like, and I personally, I would never want to go out with somebody that I had to trick into it, like, and force. And that's such a weird thing. I like, there's, you know, it's like, it's kidnapping, you know what I mean? So that I say, get the job done with, because then what happens is if you finish the photo, send them over, cool, and then say, hey, would you want to grab lunch? If they say no or yes, like, you at least know you got an honest answer, because there's nothing at that point that they need to like bullshit and you know, say yes to make sure they don't hurt your feelings because of this or that, whatever. So I say, just do the job, be as professional as possible, but also tread lightly. That, like, you know, don't go and you know, hook up and screw over people in your industry or something like that, because they're going to go talk shit about you and your reputation is going to go down the tubes. And man, I'll tell you, one of my biggest things is, like, no one will put me back in a cubicle. And that means I will not give anybody the ammunition. I will not, you know, dick over some girl that I just was attracted to, but had no intention of really, like, getting to know. And I just, you know what I mean? Like, kind of scam my way into hooking up or something. And then that's just really, like, an asshole move. You're just like, that is not worth it to me to ever go back to a cubicle. Like, none of those little situations where I'm, you know, come out the bad guy because I was being selfish is not worth it. And, you know, I'm luckily, I've always been, and this probably I should give credit to my dad, because I think he's always instilled sort of the big picture thinking, right? And always thinking long-term, like, oh, your career and this and that, right? I think about that with my photography. Is like, my reputation, like, okay, this little opportunity in front of me could be fun, but how is it for my you know, the long term, the big picture, my career, and this and that? Like, if it's not good for that, then I don't do it, right? So I've turned down some things, you know, that could have been like fun trips, and it's kind of sounded like, oh, this sounds like it's more of a party than a shoot, and I just don't know if it's good to get wrapped up into that, right? Or things like that. So there are lots of, I'll tell you, there's a lot of like temptations within this sort of realm of shooting that probably don't exist with things like wedding photography. But it's almost like being a kid in a candy store, and you gotta put the handcuffs on yourself. You know what I mean?
No, 100%.
And that just takes discipline. So this is why I said, you know, going back to earlier, it's like, if you're the like, just that alpha guy that's this and that, like, you probably don't stand much of a chance of lasting very long, because you're more likely to come off as, you know, if you're the kind of guy like, I go for it. When I feel it, I go for it. It's like, I would err on the side of caution with this, you know. And I've always heard models from the beginning of you know, shooting and working with models. They'll open up to me. Oh yeah, so it's like so and so. It's like, man, I do not want to be the photographer that she's, or any model is talking about to some other photographer, right? Yeah. Like, I don't want to be the subject of one of those conversations ever. Like, man, that would make me feel like shit knowing that you know, that might be the case because I screwed up something, right?
Totally.
Yeah, it's tricky, but a little self-discipline helps in this.
No, absolutely, man. So I want to ask you one more question, just because this is so awesome. It's obviously we have to have you back on again, but I literally have to run. So I want to know.
Oh, no worries.
I want to know. Tell me a little bit. What would be your best advice for people trying to get into this industry, swimwear and fashion, without, and I guess probably specifically swimwear, because I feel like fashion, it's like, hey, we'll find somebody wearing a cool outfit, like make some cool photos and try and build a portfolio. But like, what would be your biggest instruction to help people get into that industry? And again, you even on the lines of like not being creepy. So if you do slide into somebody's DMs and you're like, hey, I'd love to shoot, like, how do you not be weird, you know?
Okay. Well, the first thing is, if we were really talking about how to get into swimwear, you need to move to South Florida. It's probably the only, if you really decided, and you were limiting yourself to swimwear, this is where you need to be. It's not that I ever decided I want to be a swimwear photographer. I just realized that was a good, when I lived in Orlando, I shot a little bit of everything. I was shooting my friends were getting married. I'd shoot weddings. I probably should have 20 weddings under my belt from the first like 3 years of time. I haven't shot a wedding in years, but I did everything because I needed to in Orlando. There was no market that was strong enough to do only swimwear. When I moved back down to South Florida, I realized like I can focus on this. There's enough work here. There's like just enough work here that I can actually do well with being this sort of specific, right? But I don't think you could do it anywhere else, to be like truly honest. If you lived in California, you could shoot swimwear campaigns, but like not all year. I mean, in fact, most of the year it's too cold. Like the beaches there are freezing, and, you know, it's just a very different than the tropical weather we have here. That's at least consistently warm all year, right? So that's the first thing. But to be honest, like if I were to get just plopped into Atlanta tomorrow, right? Let's just take random place. It's not like one of the huge markets. So I'm not only giving advice that only the people that live in, you know, the main fashion
Tropical
markets like New York,
Yeah.
LA, Miami, right? If you were anywhere, I would just figure out, you need to taste everything, right? I think every photographer should go through a discovery phase, right? It's like you're just trying out go shoot your friend asks you to shoot their wedding, go shoot their wedding. You might actually find that, damn, I like this structured event. I like the thing that I know that there's this part, and this part. And you know, I'm a people person, so I'm good at sort of working around all these people. And, you know, I did not like weddings, by the way. I'm not one of these photographers like, oh, I won't ever touch a wedding. Like, I didn't hate weddings. Like, I shot a bunch of weddings. I actually thought I was pretty decent at it. But I would say that what I like more about what I do now is there's a little more of a like creative process, because I actually can direct and pose and I have more time, right? I'm not just, because a wedding is more of a,
it's an event. Yeah.
Yeah. You're shooting, exactly. You're shooting an event. You're just documenting what's playing out in front of you. You're a journalist, you know, in a sense.
Yeah.
And you have a little room at times to, you know, like when you do the bride and groom, you know, just together, you get to pose them a little bit and be a little more creative and say, stand here. But for most of it, you're not getting to tell anybody what to do. You're just you find the best position for yourself, the best angle, the best lens, help with the light the best you can, and just make it work. Just do the best you can with the stuff that's handed to you. I like that about fashion, is that there's more creative control. It puts more pressure on you, of course. Okay. There's more, the team is all relying on you to come up with a great idea. But I would say this, if you want to be a fisherman, you got to move to the sea. So that's the first piece of advice, because I'll hear guys, oh, I want to shoot fashion. And it's like, well, where are you now? I'm in Missouri. Like, leave, go somewhere where there's work for it, you know, because otherwise you should shoot, weddings, headshots, just people's portraits, or architectural photography. Like, go pick one of those. If you're not willing to move to a market where there's enough work to let you survive in a genre like fashion or swimwear or whatever it is, like, you're going to have to just do whatever type of photography you can in your own town if you're not willing to move. So that's the big one, is move to the right market. But look, the advice on swimwear photography versus fashion photography in general is, swimwear is just a part of fashion, right? And I like it because it's simple. I'm not like a fashion guy. I'm not like, oh my God, did you see so-and-so wearing that? Like, I can't believe they were seen out in public. You know, I don't care about fashion really, right? So that's why swimwear is cool for me, because it's really like the most simple, basic fashion there is. I don't need stylists for my shoots. I just have to pick the right color for the right skin tone. You know what I mean? It's not that complicated. If I'm styling a test shoot myself, I can do that. I don't need extra team members. When you get into like high fashion, you better have some great stylist who knows what's current and trending and this and that. If you like, let's say you're just shooting for portfolio or whatever, you need to either know all that shit yourself, but really realistically you need a team. So that's it. But look, the big advice is, take advantage of the fact that it's never been easier to just reach out to the other people that you want to collaborate with on a shoot. right? So my thing is this: is just take advantage of Instagram. Reach out to the local models, and I always say start with, if like, let's say you want to get into working with models and shooting some sort of fashion, and you don't even know yet what type of fashion you want to go at, or you don't even know what your market in your area is, right? Maybe in a small town, you could be the best guy that all the boutiques go to shoot their stuff. Maybe it's just shoot for their social media. That's another thing too, is now is this great time where sort of everybody needs content. So you could do things like, well, oh, hey, go to your local boutique. Hey, would you be willing to maybe lend me some stuff for a shoot? That's a good foot in the door. You shoot a couple other things. Now you have a rapport with them. You showed them that you're professional. You send them photos. They're happy. Then at some point they're like, hey, we really need to get some new content for social media. What do you charge for that? And then you can come up with something like, oh, I charge, we could do it for this much per look. I know guys that are doing that with swimwear. They're like getting brands to just send them swimwear and say, oh, I do $250 per look or whatever it is, right? And that's it. They just keep it simple, and they go find the model that, the model's happy because she got a free shoot. The photographer, gets paid by the client or by the brand. And so there's a lot of little ways to play it. And that's what's cool, is it was never so flexible as it is now. Okay. But that would be the big thing, is get yourself in a market where there's work and just shoot your ass off, and also shoot when, not just when you're getting hired to do it. It's like, you get the jobs, you get the paycheck, but like, you should still shoot. Like, even me, I do little free shoots here and there just to get ideas out of my system, right? To try new things. And now I'm adding to my arsenal for when the next client hires me. You're just calling back on your memory of things that you've done in the past or seen by looking around for inspiration, or, you're just kind of, your ideas aren't always 100% organic. They're sort of callbacks to, oh yeah, I've seen this before, and like, oh cool, I've been in a very similar situation and it worked out really nicely when I did this, so it's like, just keep shooting, and don't worry about the gear. That's like the other thing, is that I think, look, I was guilty of it too. I had gear acquisition syndrome. But man, if I could stress the point of how unimportant, when photographers like, what camera are you using? Look, if you scroll down your Instagram feed, okay, you could probably, without looking at the name, pick out the photographer's photos, right? You could be like, oh, that's so-and-so. I know their work when I see it, right? You could maybe guess the lens that was used to shoot it, but you trying to guess what camera was used to shoot it is just a complete shot in the dark, right? You're just taking a wild guess, okay? Because you don't know, and that just proves to you that is not the important thing. Yeah, the lens is a part of the artistic decision. A little different focal length can give a different feel to it, but at the end of the day, it's that operator of the tool that is key. So, just to the guys that are kind of new and getting into it, don't get so caught up. There are people taking amazing photos with their phones. So don't use, those are not valid excuses as to why people aren't reaching out to you to shoot. Listen for feedback, and keep your ears open whenever you're first getting into it and you're delivering photos. Get as much feedback as possible. Probably a lot of the little things that I maybe edit or watch for when I'm posing. Somebody at some point, a client or a model or somebody says, oh no, I hate it when this happens, and on a picture that's why I don't like this one or whatever. Oh, cool, noted. Going forward, that's exactly something for me to look for. So it's just kind of, stay really open to feedback, and just shoot your ass off, and at some point you need to go to where the work is. That's like probably the biggest thing if you're thinking about it as a career.
Totally. Dude, I appreciate you so much, man. Where can people go to find out more about you and say what's up and see your crazy Instagram stories?
Well, my Instagram is Joey Wright Photo. Everything is Joey Wright Photo. That's like,
that's awesome.
No other Joey Wright photographers that are, claiming that. So like, if you just any platform, Instagram. I don't really use Twitter, but
That's all right.
I will say this. I am doing Twitch weekly. So I'm doing live retouching, or like last night I did a live image, image critiques.
Yeah, that's so cool, man. I love it. I watched one of them. It was awesome.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. Definitely, I'm trying to push that because it's really, finally, I feel like Instagram is just like me. It's like a drive-by shooting. I'm like driving by, like, here's my photo, and then I just like keep going, and I'm not really like, and then people comment, and I like the comment, but there's not a conversation going on. There's not
totally.
It's not. Twitch is great because it's live, and the people that are on there chatting with me, I'm giving you full answers. Like I can have a straight up, instead of me in a hurry trying to answer 10 Instagram messages, in the morning. And I'm trying to give you an answer and trying not to be short and rude, but I'm also sorry I don't have time to do, full on nice explanations. I now tell people, hey, this is a great question. Please hop on my Twitch, ask it to me, and I can give you a complete answer for it, because this would be really hard to give you. A short answer will not do it justice. So I do ask, check out my Twitch, which is just basically a free live streaming platform. I'm usually doing retouching on there, or doing like color correcting in Capture One and Lightroom, and editing in Photoshop. And you can just be on there chatting live, and we could be talking, and I can answer your questions and show you how to do stuff. So I do that every week. So that's one of my new things. But Joey Wright Photo on my Instagram, that is like the main place to see just my current work. And there's my little link in my bio will get you to everything else. So it's hard to, once you just think Joey Wright Photo, type that in Google, type it on Instagram, you'll easily get to everything I've talked about, including Twitch and all that stuff. So
I love it, man. Thanks so much, man.
Adam, thanks for having me, and I would definitely love to do it again. So let me know anytime.
What a good episode with Joey right there. I love that guy. He's just so friendly and awesome. Want to make one note, if you're new here, if you're just listening to Joey's episode for the first time, we have tons of other past episodes that are amazing, all about building your business, being profitable, finding the right client, finding your niche, building your Instagram. Lots of episodes. I would encourage you to subscribe right now in your podcast player so that you don't miss an episode, because we are putting out good content all the time. If you'd like to take what you've learned today a little bit further, or maybe even support the podcast or something you've heard on another episode of The Bearded Tog, come check us out over on Patreon. Patreon is our member-supported platform that helps build The Bearded Tog and keep it what it is. So we don't have any ads. We've never advertised anything like that, and we would like to keep it that way. So it's only supported by people like you who listen and share and document the fact that they're listening. But some people come over to the Patreon. We've got a lot of video resources, just everything from culling to blogging to SEO to money management. Really fun stuff. We get a chance to kind of dive in a little bit deeper than we would on an audio podcast. So if you're interested in that, it's $10 a month. Come say hi, check out the content, and we would love to have you guys. So thank you guys so much for listening. Have a wonderful day. Keep being awesome.